Tonight, tears and apologies. Who's to blame for the Ruby Princess catastrophe? Mistakes and broken rules exposed, costing 21 lives and spreading disease through Sydney after the infected ship became the epicentre for COVID-19 in our country. Getting 1 million Australians back to work, the PM says we're not far from going out for dinner or breakfast as we try to save the economy. Breaking news, fresh tragedy strikes at a deadly nursing home in Western Sydney. Another death and 3 more carers have been infected. From retiring to running, Andrew Constance will bid for federal parliament weeks after preparing to quit politics in the wake of the bushfires. Mass confusion and businesses in open revolt over the government's home visit rules. Tonight we're asking questions of those in charge. And later, the rocky road to a season restart for the NRL. There's no sign of Latrell as the Bunnies get back to the Burrow.
This is 10 News First Sydney with Sandra Sully.
Good evening. A New South Wales health official has broken down under intense questioning over the Ruby Princess debacle, apologising in tears for a litany of mistakes. But today the Special Commission heard the ship did not follow our rules with its sick passengers, leaving officials powerless to stop them. The outbreak on the ill-fated vessel has cost 21 lives, with more than 660 cases resulting from the catastrophic decision to allow thousands of people to disembark in the heart of Sydney.
She's an infectious disease expert whose job it is to prevent these types of disasters. But Kerry-Ann Ressler could only offer an apology.
I'm very sorry it turned out the way it did. It was not our intention. Myself and my colleagues at the Public Health Unit were working very hard on this. We did what we could. And if we could do it again, it would be very different.
She had been under attack by the Commissioner.
That there has been a reprehensible shortcoming in New South Wales Health.
After admitting she knew the Ruby Princess was not quarantining sick passengers in breach of our health orders, but she says she felt powerless against the cruise company.
They follow their own protocols and they've been very clear to us over the years that that's what they do.
Actually, you could find out whether they were following Australian protocols, couldn't you?
Yes, I can, yes.
And if they did not, deal with them accordingly, couldn't you?
Yes.
Which might mean that the disembarkation of their passengers and a quick turnaround for the next set of paying passengers would be impeded. Isn't that right?
Yes.
But even before the Ruby Princess docked, the ship hadn't been telling health officials the whole story. The Commission revealing on March 18th, the ship's doctor produced its acute respiratory disease log, reporting only 104 passengers with respiratory symptoms and 36 more with an influenza-like illness. It meant by the afternoon it was considered a low risk of a COVID-19 outbreak and given clearance to dock.
The log sent at 9:30am on 18 March was not up to date for acute respiratory disease or influenza-like illness at the time the ship docked.
But before it did, the Port Authority itself tried to stop it arriving over COVID-19 concerns. That's when someone from the Department of Home Affairs called the Harbour Master, followed by a call from Border Force and one from the cruise company itself.
Shortly after, the same ABF officer rang the Harbour Master again and may have said that the ship could now proceed.
They didn't tell the Harbour Master what he or she should or shouldn't do. They've got no legislative authority to do that.
Just 48 hours later, the first Ruby Princess passenger would die from COVID-19. Who knew what and what they did and didn't do is now being laid bare. Ursula Hager for 10 News First.
The Prime Minister has made it clear that some big announcements are coming this Friday around the easing of COVID-19 restrictions, even hinting that restaurants and cafes aren't far away from reopening. The National Cabinet met again today with a special guest, and its priority now is getting 1 million Australians back to work.
Today's National Cabinet became an international affair, with the New Zealand PM joining the hookup with Scott Morrison and state premiers.
It was great to have the Prime Minister Ardern there with us today.
With high hopes of opening up our borders.
We both stand to benefit from getting travel up and running again. We'll be looking for ways to do it safely. That will be top of mind.
But it might be a while off yet.
It is still some time away, but it is important to flag it because it is part of the road back.
When we feel comfortable and confident that we both won't receive cases from Australia, but equally that we won't export them, then that will be the time to move.
The Treasurer fronted the National Press Club today, outlining the brutal economic impact of the COVID lockdown.
With Treasury forecasting a fall of over 10% in the June quarter, equivalent to $50 billion.
So you can understand that with numbers like that, the National Cabinet are not in any way unaware of the serious implications of the decisions that we've had to take now over many months.
With today's Bureau of Statistics numbers showing a massive spike in unemployment.
We now need to get 1 million Australians back to work. That is the curve that we need to address.
Across sectors hardest hit by the crisis.
It's not just the waiter and the chef that is affected. It is the food producer. It is the supply chain.
We'll get a firmer idea of exactly how lockdowns will be eased in each state when National Cabinet reconvenes on Friday. There is frustration, though, within the federal government about growing recalcitrance within Victoria, with a sense that they may well choose to go it alone.
At the end of the day, every Premier, every Chief Minister has to stand in front of their state and justify the decisions that they're taking in terms of the extent of the restrictions that are in place.
With the health crisis seemingly under control, the economic repair work begins. Well, it is an interesting situation at the moment. We're really going to wait to see what happens state by state. Those details will come on Friday, but it also depends what industry you're in. If, for example, you work in the music festival industry with mosh pits, I wouldn't be expecting to go back to work anytime soon. Interestingly, the Prime Minister seems to have cottoned on to the fact that it's kind of not his call. It's the call of state premiers exactly how lockdowns get eased and in what way restrictions are amended. So we're all passengers on this. But in a way, when National Cabinet meets on Friday, the Prime Minister might be chairing it, but he's essentially a passenger too.
Nice way to put it. Peter Van Onselen, thank you. We have some breaking news now. Sydney's infected Newmarch House has again been hit by tragedy after already losing 15 of its residents to coronavirus. Paris Martin is live from the nursing home in Cadence. Paris, another devastating day for staff and loved ones.
It certainly has been, Sandra. Anglicare has confirmed the death of yet another resident here at Newmarch House. This takes the facility's death toll to 16. The provider has yet to provide any details on the resident's age or their gender, but we know the family has been notified, as have the relevant authorities. This comes after another day of rigorous staff screening, which has already uncovered a cluster amongst the workers. On the way in, every worker is swabbed. It's a rigorous daily routine that detected 3 new cases yesterday alone.
Please know that we are doing everything we can in our power in terms of the role that we have.
At least one of the new cases at Newmarch House didn't display any symptoms. Anthony Bowe's 79-year-old mother Pat is one of the residents who was tested positive. He says staff screening should have started weeks ago.
They missed an opportunity to maybe at least test for temperatures early on in those first few weeks, if not swab. So it was just a window that was missed.
The Cadence facility is the second biggest cluster in the country. 37 residents have been infected, along with 29 staff. 16 have now died. Over the weekend, Anglicare confirmed a contracted worker was asked to stand down over an alleged breach of PPE protocols. A disappointing revelation for families in the wake of a deadly few weeks.
And if they were to go to work and infect someone else, it'd be horrible.
As the number of cases continues to rise here at Newmarch House, the Chief Health Officer has defended staff, saying infection control measures can be hard to maintain, especially when trying to provide compassionate care.
Of course you're going to go and pick up a resident who's fallen on the floor, even if it means, if your mask dislodges when you make that sudden movement. I think we need to show care and compassion for the staff.
A fourth person has tested positive in the past 24 hours, a worker from the Nepean Blue Mountains Local Health District who didn't deal with patients while infectious. Across the state, 13 people are in intensive care battling the virus, with 11 relying on ventilators. Soon, the life-saving machines will be made locally, with 2 prototypes from New South Wales chosen for pre-production.
We hope to be in a position where when we have sufficient for our own supplies here in the state, that we can support other states and other countries in their supply chains.
The first models could be ready in a matter of weeks. Paris Martin for 10 News First.
Less than 2 months after foreshadowing his retirement from New South Wales politics, Transport Minister Andrew Constance has announced he wants to shift to federal parliament. The Bega MP is seeking to be the Liberal Party candidate for the vacant seat of Eden-Monaro. It comes as the man who pulled out of the contest, Deputy Premier John Barilaro, launched an astonishing attack today on one of his own.
After 17 years in state politics, Andrew Constance is ready for a change.
By running in the National Parliament, I want to put a number of issues squarely on the national agenda when it comes to recovery.
It's not the change many were expecting. After the bushfires, he indicated he was ready to leave politics.
I've said before, I'm just going to do the recovery and then I'm going to resign because, this changes you.
I had a lot of people when I made that statement say, don't go, we need you to be part of recovery.
The Bega MP believes people are sick of politicians and admits he was part of the problem.
The political approach I took before the fires was terrible. It was scripted, it was trying to, just turn up and give a scripted answer.
He now says he's speaking his mind, which he did when the Prime Minister visited Cobargo in January.
I didn't even know he was coming and I haven't had a call from him. So to be honest with you, the locals probably gave him the welcome that he probably deserved.
It was great that the Prime Minister apologised to me personally at the time, and he and I both share this incredible passion around how we can improve Eden-Monaro and how we can improve the country.
If elected, he wants to see a national approach to disaster recovery and changes to how charities distribute donations. Recovery is also the focus for Labor's candidate, Christy McBain.
We've got a number of people doing it particularly tough, and it's their voices and those people that I'm seeking to represent.
A day after deciding he wouldn't run for Eden-Monaro,
I've definitely made the right decision and I'm comfortable where we're at.
State Nationals leader John Barilaro has hit out at his federal leader. In text messages leaked to Sky News, Barilaro accuses Michael McCormack of not supporting his candidacy because he's threatened by him, writing, "You will never be acknowledged by me as our leader. You aren't, you never will be." McCormack says he's done nothing but support John Barilaro. Clearly, the Deputy Premier doesn't see it that way. Lachlan Kennedy for 10 News First.
A court has heard that there were 3 sets of eyes on the road as Teramona Techi reversed up a DY hill, fatally running over a Sydney grandmother. Hane Matheson was pushing her 18-month-old grandson in a pram at the time and managed to push him out of the way before she was hit. In closing submissions today, Techi's barrister echoed evidence that neither the accused nor his 2 passengers saw the pedestrian in the side mirrors or the reversing mirror. But the Crown prosecutor argued that the truckie had become complacent and was driving dangerously.
Has this taken a real toll on you?
The judge is expected to make his decision on Thursday. Some Sydney businesses are now in open revolt against the government's lockdown measures due to mass confusion. Beauticians, massage parlours and even tattooists have been told that they can do home visits, but not open in their own regulated and sanitary premises. Now, many say that is dangerous. 10 News First put the issue to the government today with that advice now pulled from its website.
All day, tattooist Kian Farrell has had customers trying to book in. Usually, that would be good for business. But there's one big problem.
Our phone's been ringing off the hook. People are messaging us on social media, taking screenshots of the health department website, telling us we can come to their house and tattoo them. We say we can't, it's illegal, then they get mad at us. So this has been our whole day.
His studio has been shut for 6 weeks as per state guidelines. But then new guidelines appeared on the government website saying services can be provided in your home, including spas, nail, beauty, waxing and tanning salons, tattoo parlours or massage parlours. But then it disappeared.
I knew that was wrong. To be a tattooer and a tattoo operator in New South Wales, you have to have a commercially zoned premise.
It's the way this government has stumbled and mumbled through this pandemic. The problem is these are small business owners, hard-working small business owners who employ many thousands of people across the community.
Makeup and lash artist Aurelie Wright also has been fielding calls.
It's very confusing when you want to book in clients and you are going through that process of thinking, OK, I can book them in now.
10 News First has made multiple inquiries to the Health Minister's office today to find out about that information that was posted on the government's website. How did it end up there and why was it removed? We're yet to receive an answer to those questions, which leaves us and thousands of businesses just like this in the dark. Minutes before we went to air, there was another change to the website as the government tried for some sort of clarity. This morning, in her daily press conference, the Premier was asked about tattooing people at home.
I don't know about that a specific example, but we're cautious, we're being safe, and that people have certainty.
Something there's not a lot of at the moment. Charlotte Goodlett for 10 News First.
Coles will resume its pre-virus trading hours with the supply of essential groceries returning to normal. From this Friday, the dedicated community hour for the elderly, vulnerable and healthcare workers will be scrapped. Almost 200 stores nationwide will also open their doors earlier from 6 a.m. The supermarket giant says that full safety and sanitisation measures to protect customers and staff will remain in place. Stay with us. Still to come, Australia chips into the global endeavour to find a COVID vaccine. Elation as Italians get their first taste of fresh air in 2 months. 3,000 deaths a day, the grim forecast for the US, now lifting restrictions. Qantas extends its flight cancellations, what it means for its employees and you. And this reckless road rage incident in Sydney's West, what happened to the driver that started it?
Help with some easy projects you can do while you're at home. Like finally setting up those shelves in the garage. You can shop online, order the essentials you need, and we'll bundle it up for you. It's like having the warehouse at your fingertips.
My husband is at it again. It's the new Aussie drama that the critics are absolutely loving.
She's meant to be me?
I can explain that. The new season, How to Stay Married, on 10. The happy couple return tonight after MasterChef.
A man arrested for repeatedly spitting on a police officer has walked free from bail. Jason Gonzalez was arrested late Sunday night after officers were called to a fight in Surrey Hills. One man was caught at the scene, but Gonzalez allegedly fled before he was found. It's alleged the 27-year-old then spat on a female officer twice after he was taken to the police station. The Colombian student was released this afternoon after spending 2 nights locked up in Silverwater Prison.
Spitting on a police officer during a pandemic, it's quite serious charges. Are you going to plead guilty or not guilty?
He is expected to be back in court later this month. A woman has been accused of posing as a nurse to pay for a new car. The 22-year-old allegedly altered payslips and banking records to support the ruse. Police were alerted to the fraud after raiding a Cobbitty home where they seized $1.5 million worth of ice and then arrested a man. They returned to that same property this morning to pick up the woman and seize her car. A man has been arrested after he was caught brandishing a homemade spear on a suburban street. Officers were called out to Winmalee in the Blue Mountains this morning following reports of a man wielding a weapon. The 51-year-old was quickly arrested and the spear secured. Charges are yet to be laid. Prime Minister Scott Morrison has joined 40 other world leaders in an online fundraising summit to develop a vaccine. The event, hosted by the European Union, raised $13 billion. That's despite both China and the US refusing to pledge assent. Europe correspondent Phoebe Bowden reports.
A vaccine can't come quickly enough, and with it an end to the COVID-19 nightmare. So world leaders have rallied for a good old-fashioned fundraiser.
At a time when we are sitting further apart than usual, the world has shown it is standing closer together than ever before.
Japan has pledged the equivalent of 1.2 billion Australian dollars, Germany about 900 million, and Australia is chipping in too.
G'day from Australia.
The total soon reaching about 13 billion Aussie dollars.
Today, Australia is pledging 352 million Australian dollars towards this global effort.
You are far away, but close to our hearts.
Australia, with its relatively low infection and death rates, is the envy of the world right now. America, where the death toll is highest, ignored the fundraiser. China too turned its back, even though it's where the outbreak began. Despite the lack of cooperation from the superpowers, the fundraiser is seen as a sign of hope that the world can work together. It was spearheaded by EU leaders. Over half of all COVID-19 deaths have occurred across the European continent. And it wasn't just countries pledging. Madonna chipped in nearly 2 million. Mega-rich couple Bill and Melinda Gates were generous too, offering about 155 million Aussie dollars.
The pandemic won't end until people everywhere can be immunised against it.
And life as we know it can return. Phoebe Bowden for 10 News First London.
A driver in Sydney's West has left little on his licence after he was caught on dashcam driving recklessly and colliding with a truck. The vision shows the driver of a Holden Commodore attempting to merge into a busy right-turning lane before clipping the truck behind. The offending driver then sped in front of the truck before braking several times and leaning out of the car, narrowly missing a concrete barrier. The 47-year-old man was fined more than $1,400 and lost 11 demerit points. Hovering above with the latest on Sydney traffic tonight is Marina Ivanovic. Marina, it's a nice clear run tonight at the M7 M2 merge point.
Yes, indeed, Sandra, it is. It's looking good in both directions. We did have an earlier accident through the Borkham Hills area, but it's all been cleared off and traffic is moving smoothly. As you can see here, if I move to the left of the screen, we've got Winston Hills, a bit of a build-up for Old Windsor Road up towards Seven Hills Road, but no major problems through here, Sandra. I'm Marina Ivanovic in the ABC Reading Eggs Traffic Chopper.
Let's get the latest on our weather now with Tim Bailey. Tim, I love it when you serve them sunny side up.
Souls, shiny stuff doesn't go astray at the moment, does it? Really good. Big blue skies, chilled mornings thanks to a big high pressure system sitting over southeastern Australia. Let's have a look at the Daily Bailey weather wall. How did we score today? It was a good one. 12 through to 21 degrees. Currently it is 18. The rest of New South Wales was a pretty nice place to be as well. Broken Hill 5 through to 19 degrees. Thredbo, it's glorious in the high country. -4 the state's low. Grafton the high at 23. Lismore 21 degrees today. Coffs Harbour 22, Tamworth down to 5, a bit shivery, 21 degrees, the maximum. Dubbo did 20, Newcastle 19, Nowra 20, and Bega had a spread of 1 through to 20 degrees. The super suburbs of Sydney are only going to get better as the week gets longer in the tooth. Today, Penrith 22, 14 Katoomba, Bankstown 21 degrees, Terry Hills 11 through to 18, Mascot 19, and Sydney again 12 through to 21 degrees. Later in the bulletin, going to put on my thongs, my zinc cream, and bring back summer. How does that sound?
Oh, I like the sound of it. Thank you, Tim. Excellent news. Stay with us. Up next, Italy's lockdown lifted, how locals celebrated their newfound freedom. Big debt, the US to borrow another $4 trillion to cover coronavirus costs. And the heart-stopping moment a car flips into the path of a pedestrian. What happens next? Now, checking today's petrol prices around the suburbs of Sydney, and the cheapest we found today was in Wentworthville. It was 81 cents. The average price across the city, now 97 cents. And we're told those prices are going up, so fill up while you can.
As a parent, you ask, what's the best way to support my child? From first words to gaining confidence for new adventures, you're right there by their side. Wherever they are in their learning journey, ABC Reading Eggs is there to help you. Start your ABC Reading Eggs journey today.
When you have an interest rate this low, you don't need to do much to get attention. It's our lowest variable rate in 60 years.
Starbucks coffee is coming home, now available in supermarkets.
If you're in business in Australia, right now you're facing one of your toughest challenges. Business Australia can help you manage your responsibilities to your employees and assist with strategies to maintain and sustain your business. For free advice and support, visit businessaustralia.com.
This is the toughest taste test ever.
This is so hard.
I just can't do it.
The toughest taste test elimination tonight.
Italy has begun to stir again, with millions allowed to return to work for the first time since early March. The easing of the world's longest COVID-19 lockdown also saw parks reopen and families reunite. But with more than 29,000 people killed by the virus, life in Italy is still far from what it was. Hermione Kitson is in Rome.
Italy's historic centre is on the path to recovery.
I've been really excited about going out today, and it seems like there's life in Rome again.
Stephanie Burford is a 35-year-old nurse from Adelaide studying a master's in Rome. She didn't rush home for the lockdown because she didn't expect the situation to become so devastating.
It's very difficult for the businesses, also for all the people that have lost their lives, for the doctors and nurses.
But with the death toll and infection rate now declining, the country has moved to phase 2. Residents can finally venture outside.
Going out is incredible. It really is a great feeling. For now, it's precious, even if you can get out and go for a bike ride.
Big sectors of the economy like construction and manufacturing will restart, but most shops won't reopen until late May, and hairdressers and restaurants will have to wait until June.
At this location in the center of Rome, we have to spend a lot of money for the rent, and in this moment, without the tourists, without the people that come from another country, we have to close.
Travel is still only allowed within Italy's regions, and international visitors may not return until next year. The government says the crisis isn't over yet, and that stage 2 is about learning to live with the virus, so restrictions such as masks and social distancing will continue to be enforced. But for now, at least grandparents can once again hug their grandchildren. I can't even speak for how excited I am, says this grandfather. A glimmer of light after 2 very dark months. Hermione Kitson for 10 News First, Rome.
Alarming new modelling seen by the White House is projecting 3,000 Americans will die a day from coronavirus by next month. That is a 70% increase from forecasts just a couple of weeks ago. The dire predictions come as half of all US states reopen in some way. Florida, which has recorded more than 1,300 virus deaths, has become the latest state to give the green lights to restaurants.
We have to be adults and make our decisions where we're not going to harm anybody, but we still have to support the community.
The United States says it wants to borrow more than $4.5 trillion to fund coronavirus rescue packages in the second quarter of the year. It's more than 5 times the previous record set during the global financial crisis. A security camera has captured the moment a pedestrian narrowly avoided being hit by a rolling car. The Audi clipped the back of a truck, which sent it hurtling down the road. Fortunately, the man reacted quickly, ditching his groceries and sprinting out of the vehicle's path. Hundreds of sheep have overtaken a town in Turkey during the lockdown. The shepherd led the huge flock through the normally busy streets, with many stopping to graze on the grassy pavements. Residents could only watch their town being overrun from their homes due to Turkey's strict quarantine measures. Sydney's art scene has suffered a major blow, with the popular Carriage Works at Everleigh placed into voluntary administration. The largest contemporary art space in the nation generates 3/4 of its revenue from hosting events. But COVID restrictions have forced the sudden cancellation of 6 months' worth of shows, as well as its popular weekend farmers markets.
And not a single cent was provided to that sector by the Premier. That is extraordinary. Victoria, Queensland, South Australia all raced forward with emergency package.
The Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, is the acting arts minister. Don Harwin resigned from the role after being fined for breaching COVID-19 travel restrictions. Well, stay with us after the break. Burning $40 million a week, Qantas bleeds cash while announcing further cancellations. A warning to all parents after a toddler's very near miss. And the pilot who returned to his roots as a paramedic for the COVID crisis.
At McDonald Jones Homes, we've been building the Australian dream for over 30 years. And today, this purpose is more important to us than ever before. That's why we're going to keep building the homes that define our way of life. So don't lose sight of your dream, because we're going to keep building for you.
Let's do it, baby. It's on, mate.
Get PointsBet's new racing form from RaceNet. PointsBet offers you won't believe, moments you'll never forget.
My husband is at it again.
Just meant to be, mate?
Yeah.
New How to Stay Married, tonight on 10.
Qantas shares rose today, with the airline declaring it has enough funds to hold out until the end of next year. But the airline admits it is burning through millions of dollars every day. National Affairs editor Hugh Riminton reports their big hope is to kickstart the domestic and trans-Tasman flights before it's too late.
Some relief for travellers and airlines today, with the hope domestic and trans-Tasman flights might resume, perhaps in the next 6 to 8 weeks.
When we're seeing Australians travel from Melbourne to Cairns at about that time, I would expect, everything being equal, that we'd be able to, fly from Melbourne to Auckland.
When we feel comfortable and confident that we both won't receive cases from Australia, but equally that we won't export them, then that will be the time to move.
To tide itself over, Qantas has found another $500 million through taking loans against more of its aircraft and extended out its staff stand-downs for at least another month. Qantas and Jetstar domestic cancellations have been extended to the end of June. International cancellations, other than to New Zealand, now extend to the end of July. It is a mixed message. Qantas boss Alan Joyce saying, "We're optimistic that domestic travel will start returning earlier than first thought. But apart from New Zealand, international travel demand could take years to return to what it was." The Kiwis are certainly busting for those flights to return.
Look, they're getting the ski fields ready in Queenstown. Tourism people tend to be optimistic, and so they're getting the snow groomers up there and the snowmaking machines. They're getting ready.
After howls of protest, Qantas has improved its travel credits for people whose flights have been cancelled, but lawyers still insist they should get cash refunds. The message from Qantas to the market today is that it will survive, even burning through more than $40 million a week in cash. It says it has enough funds to see it through to the end of next year. And by the end of next week, we'll know how many of those 20 potential bidders for Virgin are really serious about buying that airline.
That 90% of people probably don't know that this is their entitlement and won't go through to the effort of getting their money back.
Since threatening a class action against the airlines yesterday, law firm Slater & Gordon says the phones have been running hot.
And in just the past 24 hours, we've been contacted by over 1,000 people who are suffering from these conditions.
Perhaps in time, some justice for travellers, but another potential drain on the airline's cash reserves. Hugh Riminton for 10 News First.
The coronavirus pandemic is dominating headlines in Sydney tonight. Another elderly resident has died at Newmarch House, the aged care home near Penrith. There are now 4 new cases in our state, and while that sounds like good news, all are healthcare workers, with 3 of those from Newmarch and 1 from the Nepean Health District. There have been 3,035 cases. More than 2,000 of those have recovered. And there have been tears and apologies at a special commission into the Ruby Princess catastrophe. There are claims the cruise ship broke rules over docking here and that New South Wales Health knew and failed to stop it. The infected vessel has been linked to 21 deaths and more than 660 COVID-19 cases in Australia, the deadliest cluster of the pandemic so far. The Australian Air Force has unveiled its latest aircraft, the first to be designed and built locally for more than 50 years. This is the Loyal Wingman drone, so called because it's capable of assisting manned aircraft while also going on missions itself. Boeing and the Air Force are developing the Wingman as part of a $40 million partnership. A final check now on tonight's traffic. Marina, there's a car fire at Burwood. What do you know?
Yes, Sandra, it's on Burwood Road, affecting a run in both directions. Unfortunately, we can't get over it at the moment, but we do know it's outside of the Westfield. That's between Paisley Road and the M4, causing delays in both directions. And just having a look at the run on the Ryde Bridge, it's quite busy, heading northbound. I'm Marina Ivanovic in the ABC Reading Eggs Traffic Chopper.
Matt Burke is here now with a look at the day in sport. And Matt, the Melbourne Storm's move to New South Wales is under threat.
Yeah, that's right, Sandra. Good evening. They were ready to move to Albury, but a town council meeting tonight could vote against their stay. Better news for Sydney rivals, with the Rabbitohs superstar and the Roosters coach cleared of coronavirus. And let there be lights. Can this man save supercars and Rugby Australia?
As a parent, you ask, what's the best way to support my child? From first words to gaining confidence for new adventures, you're right there by their side. Wherever they are in their learning journey, ABC Reading Eggs is there to help you. Start your ABC Reading Eggs journey today.
Meet the revolutionary Sleeping Duck mattress, reimagined by aerospace engineers. The first mattress ever to win Choice's Best Overall Mattress 2 years in a row. It comes manufacturer direct, free of markup. Sleeping Duck, incredible quality with incredible value.
This is the toughest taste test ever.
This is so hard.
I just can't do it.
The toughest taste test elimination tonight.
Good evening. A storm is brewing over Melbourne's relocation to the border town of Albury, with the club facing a backlash from local council. At an extraordinary meeting tonight, council could vote against the storm's stay because of community safety concerns.
All packed and on the way to Albury. But Melbourne's stay might be short-lived. They aren't allowed to train in Victoria, so had to cross the border. Now, council backlash means they could be forced to head to Sydney.
We've been kept across that. Obviously, there'll be worked through with the people responsible for those decisions, and Melbourne are still moving towards going to Albury.
A sigh of relief for the NRL today. Latrell Mitchell tested negative to COVID-19. So did teammates Adam Reynolds, Liam Knight and Roosters coach Trent Robinson.
I think one of the things it shows is that some of the suggestions that we wouldn't take these protocols seriously or that the sport would have difficulty handling them is incorrect.
And there's more good news. The players officially agreed to their new pay deal. It equates to an 80% cut across the year. Clubs return to training tomorrow, but the Warriors got a jump on the rest while in quarantine in Tamworth. And they were feeling it.
It's a different type of training, trying to train on your own back home and inside your house and in your little backyard, and you come out here, and I think when you try and measure 60 metres back home compared to the real 60 metres, it's a long difference then.
The squad split into groups, a maximum of 10 in each. Just fitness and skills, no tackling or wrestling allowed until next week.
One group is up early, they have breakfast, they do their mobility, get ready, then you're on the field. And then the next group would get up, have breakfast, and then so on. So just almost like a chain.
Players are required to get a flu shot, but Titan Bryce Cartwright is refusing. Other players have been forced to move house, like Marcelo Montoya from the Bulldogs, whose mum works in aged care. Emma Lawrence for 10 News First.
Broncos CEO Paul White was careful not to rule himself out of contention to be the next NRL boss. White remains committed to his Brisbane club, but talked around any direct interest in applying for the NRL CEO role.
If someone thinks you're good enough to do it, someone reaches out to you. It's certainly, I don't think it's a job that demands a CV goes into someone's in-tray. I think people have had fair line of sight over me.
And White's Broncos contract expires in October, though he has promised to see the club through this pandemic. Supercars chairman Peter Wiggs has quickly become one of the most powerful operators in Australian rugby. Recently elected to the board, the Fine-Outs power broker is now being touted as the Code's next chairman.
He's a man of two different sports that are poles apart, but both on the skids. Now Supercars chairman Peter Wiggs is tipped to sign on to play the same role at Rugby Australia.
There's talk about you might be wanting to be the executive chairman?
No. I'm happy to work as part of a team at Rugby Australia, but this is my main focus.
Peter V'landys has proven he can wear two hats at once as he navigates an NRL return while still running Racing New South Wales. Wiggs has already made his mark with cash-strapped rugby as a director, taking the lead in negotiating a quick pay deal with the players.
A lot of people are saying that you can be the saviour of Australian rugby. Is that true?
There'll be a lot of saviours of Australian rugby, but it will succeed.
After CEO Raylene Castle pulled the plug on her rugby reign, a get-together was organised with two former Wallabies captains about future direction.
You had a meeting with Nick Farr-Jones and Phil Kearns last week. What did you talk about?
That's confidential.
Today, it was all about the further transformation of Sydney Motorsport Park, which will now have the ability to operate both day and night. The first of 132 light towers installed, but with coronavirus bringing supercars to a halt, broadcast rights beyond 2020 still up in the air, and Holden's shutdown, the future seems in the pits.
Our focus is the immediate championship that's in front of us, getting that delivered, and then we'll change gears once we get going again.
There's always going to be history, and there's always going to be a legacy, and that's good. It'll continue to be successful.
Michael Kane for 10 News First.
The A-League is considering an August return date to finish the season. There are 32 matches remaining, including finals. Restarting is complicated as the A-League is played across 5 states plus New Zealand. Teams still aren't allowed to train while some players still live overseas.
August is a possibility. It's, we're looking at several different options. We have a number of foreign players playing in each team, and we have foreign coaches as well. And we'd be looking to try as best as possible to finish the season with the same players that were playing when we stopped the season.
And the FFA still expects to find out in June if Australia and New Zealand will host the 2023 Women's World Cup, despite a FIFA conference being cancelled because of COVID-19. Australian women's vice-captain Rachel Haynes admits she hasn't picked up a bat since the T20 World Cup final. Physically and mentally exhausted after a hectic season, the national team played a whopping 31 matches in the space of 8 months. The forced lockdown has helped her refresh.
I was really looking forward to a break. I'd hit a lot of balls up until that tournament. So, yeah, it certainly feels like, I'm definitely missing it. I'm looking forward to getting back in the nets again.
And when that happens, she says the team's preparing to train in smaller groups to minimise close contact. And Sandra, everybody's trying to find a positive out of this break at the moment.
We have to. We've just got to stay positive, haven't we, Matt? Thank you. Coming up next, the Ruby Princess under the microscope and another aged care death. We're back with our top stories.
And this is the view off the 10 News First roof. Have a look at that. The sun's setting. It's around about 17 degrees. And I'm bringing back summer. The weather wall is there.
Four Coke, 10 nuggets and sauce, only $24.95. Get takeaway, drive-through or delivery at Hungry Jack's.
This is for the hundreds of thousands of folks that keep racing going. Because just like you, we love it. And happily give back 4 times more than any of our competitors to keep them running. That money supports track workers, apprentices, farriers, caterers and more, right here. And that's worth backing. Tab. Long may we play.
Know when to stop, don't go over the top, gamble responsibly.
Red Bull gives you wings, now with the taste of watermelon. Also available in orange and tropical flavours.
We've got to keep an eye on him, haven't we? You know Tim Bailey's back because it is Timmy time. Tim, I'm waking up. It is a bit chilly in the AM, but unbelievably, you've got your eye on some summertime temps.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. The goosebumps are about of a morning. We've got them really cold and crisp soles, but I'm bringing back summer, folks, and I mean it. How about this? Friday and Saturday in Sydney town, how does 27 degrees sound? Let's hit the Daily Bailey weather wall and find out how that can be possible. First off, cold fronts. Worrying WA. They had a bleak old day today, that southwest corner. Another one lining them up. A cold front moves through the Bight. Plenty of cloud moves in on Western Tasmania and southern Victoria. You might notice New South Wales pretty much a cloud-free zone, and you'll put that down to one big, fat, high-pressure system that looks like this. Here it comes on the telly right now. It is over New South Wales. It will slowly move out over the Tasman Sea in the next 24 hours. It will draw down some very warm northerly winds, which is going to be a rather nice thing. Hence, summertime temperatures, a little bit of December in May. 27 degrees in the harbour city on Friday and Saturday. Cold front, low pressure system barrelling, plugging into some power and some Arctic air across the Australian Bight. And the cold front will maybe sneak through and lower our temperatures across New South Wales round about Sunday. OK, the business of the brolly. Predicted precipitation, drips and drops across rooftops and crops. There's the hammering, southwest WA, southwest land division, get it? Fair bit of action across the Bight, not worrying too many people. Little bit of onshore flow across the border of Queensland, New South Wales and tropical Queensland as well. That's Queensland, Tim, that's New South Wales. Just a little refresher there for the weatherman. All right, here we go. The Daily Bailey weather wall, where you get it all, and you know why you get it all, because you are keeping us entertained each and every night. We take you up to Thredbo again because this is a little, look at that, the deer crossing the road. Michelle J photography. That was some storm across the weekend, and that is a little buck crossing the road. Don't you love it? Just a ripper. Share it on Instagram, folks. You know the rules. Hashtag Daily Bailey NSW and follow me on Insta. Pull your phone out. Be part of this glorious club that's keeping us, well, entertained during these harsh times. Daily Bailey 10 is what you're after. OK, next up, look at this beauty. Photo Cartel, what a glorious composition. Just beautiful. Newport, we love you. That was some big blue sky out there, and the motion in the ocean was just glorious. Thank you very much. Share it on Insta. Hashtag Daily Bailey NSW. Now, I'm not the only person up here tonight with a shocking haircut. This is I Love Kernell, and look at Shaggy. This is Arnold. Arnold just making a beautiful silhouette on your television set and making my haircut look absolutely gorgeous. All right, let's go and find your forecast, folks. I love your work, I really do. Broome, 34 degrees, fine and sunny. Perth, it's wet, we've seen that, 18. Adelaide, 22 degrees, plenty of blue sky. The Alice shining at you at 29 degrees. A leaking sky in Cairns, 28. Brisbane does 15 through to 25. Canberra drops to 3 degrees for a goosebump-a-thon before launching into a fine autumn's day at 18. Melbourne, 19 degrees, one better, and 19 in Hobart, which at this time of the years is mild in Taswegia. OK, New South Wales, what have we got for you? 23, brilliant in Broken Hill. Dubbo, 21, Orange, 15 degrees, hardly a cloud in the sky. Wind an issue in Wagga Wagga, it'll bite you, 19 degrees. Canberra, 18, 22 Bega. Nowra does 23, beautiful blue sky. Newcastle, Tamworth, windy, and the showers kick in around about Coffs and spread up to Lismore for 23 degrees. Super suburbs of Sydney then on Hump Day winning Wednesday. It looks like this. Breeze will be a problem. 24 though isn't. Parramatta 22, Bankstown 22 degrees. Fine and sunny in Gosford. Likewise Terry Hills. And the official forecast for Sydney tomorrow. How about a blue sky and 23 degrees? 7-day forecast sneaks up on your TV in 25 minutes time.
Tonight's top stories, the Ruby Princess catastrophe, tears, apologies and broken rules, the blame game over the biggest Australian disaster of the coronavirus pandemic. Tragedy strikes another resident at a deadly nursing home near Penrith, while more carers are infected with COVID-19. And as one New South Wales politician aims for a Canberra career, another just takes aim at one of his own. There has been tears and an apology at a special commission of inquiry into the Ruby Princess coronavirus bungle today, after it was put to a health official that the handling of the deadly debacle was reprehensible. The outbreak on the ill-fated vessel has cost 21 lives, with more than 660 cases resulting from the catastrophic decision to allow thousands of people to disembark in the very heart of Sydney.
We did what we could. And if we could do it again, it would be very different.
A tough truth laid bare as tough questions are asked about the cruise ship behind the country's worst cluster of COVID-19.
This is a special commission of inquiry. It is not a trial.
More than 600 cases and 21 deaths have been linked to the Ruby Princess.
Who knew what and when? Who passed on information and to whom? Who made the crucial decisions and why?
Today it triggered tears and an apology from a New South Wales health official posed with this conclusion.
That there has been a reprehensible shortcoming in New South Wales Health in that regard.
Commissioner, all I can say is that I'm very sorry it turned out the way it did.
Just 25 passengers were swabbed on board for coronavirus, far fewer than the numbers swabbed for influenza.
Until you raise it with me now, I wasn't aware that it was so unsatisfactory.
But it appears they didn't have the whole picture. The morning before it arrived, the ship's doctor supplied a log of passengers with acute respiratory disease, reporting only 104 had respiratory symptoms and 36 an influenza-like illness. It meant by the afternoon it was deemed at low risk of a COVID outbreak and was allowed to arrive.
The log sent at 9:30 a.m. on 18 March was not up to date for acute respiratory disease or influenza-like illness at the time the ship docked.
As that fallout continues, so too does the nightmare at Anglicare's Newmarch house, where another resident has died. Their passing is the 16th from COVID-19 at the facility, while 3 more staff have tested positive.
Our intensive screening of staff has actually picked up cases, and that's what we'd actually want to do.
Ultimately, though, they want to stop the spread.
It's actually quite challenging to maintain full PPE and interact with the patients. And in the end, we want care and compassion.
We are doing everything we can in our power in terms of the role that we have.
Right now, that's still not enough. Alice Hogg for 10 News First.
We've been told to expect some major announcements on the easing of lockdown restrictions later this week. It comes as the dramatic impact of the closures on our economy came to light. As Peter Van Onselen reports, combating the effects and getting Australians back to work is now the priority.
From welcoming the New Zealand Prime Minister to the National Cabinet.
Well, it was great to have the Prime Minister Ardern there with us today.
To discuss our experience with COVID-19 on both sides of the ditch, what we can learn from one another.
To Josh Frydenberg's address to the National Press Club.
With Treasury forecasting a fall of over 10% in the June quarter, equivalent to $50 billion.
The focus of the government today very much on opening up the economy and dealing with some of the economic fallout from the crisis.
The National Cabinet are not in any way unaware of the serious implications of the decisions that we've had to take now over many months.
The forecast fall in GDP, together with the employment effects of the health restrictions, have seen Treasury forecast that the unemployment rate is likely to double.
The Prime Minister keen to get things opened up to benefit the economy.
We now need to get 1 million Australians back to work. That is the curve that we need to address.
We'll learn more on Friday about exactly how each state will act to open up their economy. But there is growing resistance within Victoria and a sense within the federal government that they may well choose to go it alone.
Tonight, a number of industries are struggling through a mire of confusion after it seemed like beauticians, tattooists and massage parlours had the right to carry out home visits. But after we asked New South Wales Health for some clarification today, it appears the goalposts have moved again.
For weeks now, beauty salons, tattoo artists and massage parlours like this one here have been closed due to COVID-19. But this morning, many businesses around the state started to get calls from customers. Many were confused. Why would they suddenly want to book in appointments? Well, the confusion came from the New South Wales government website that said services can be provided in your home, including spas, nail, beauty, waxing and tanning salons, tattoo parlours or massage parlours. By mid-morning, the post had disappeared.
I knew that was wrong. To be a tattooer and a tattoo operator in New South Wales, you have to have a commercially zoned premise.
It's very confusing when you want to book in clients and you are going through that process of thinking, OK, I can book them in now.
It's the way this government has stumbled and mumbled through this pandemic. The problem is these are small business owners, hard-working small business owners who employ many thousands of people across the community.
Late this afternoon, the website changed for a second time and businesses that we've spoken to say they're more confused than ever.
State Transport Minister Andrew Constance has confirmed he does want to run for the newly vacated federal seat of Eden-Monaro. It came as a shock to colleagues as only 2 months ago, the Bega MP, well, he was preparing to quit politics. His change of heart comes as the Deputy Premier took aim at one of his own colleagues.
For a man who wanted to escape the political spotlight, Andrew Constance has never looked more at home.
I am going to be seeking pre-selection for the Liberal Party for the federal seat of Eden-Monaro.
Beaten up by the bushfires and 17 years in the bear pit of New South Wales Parliament, the 46-year-old was done.
Less politics, the better.
But the glint is back and he's eyeing a spot in Canberra.
I've admitted, you know, that the political approach I took before the fires was terrible. It was scripted, it was trying to, you know, just turn up and give a scripted answer and what have you. And
it's believed he is Scott Morrison's pick, which would have seemed far-fetched only a few months ago after this criticism of the Prime Minister's now infamous visit to Cobargo.
I didn't even know he was coming and I haven't had a call from him. So to be honest with you, the locals probably gave him the welcome that he probably deserved.
There is no doubt that we all learnt from the bushfires. And at the time I said some very strong words. It was great that the Prime Minister apologised to me personally at the time.
Liberal Party nominations don't close until Friday. The winner will face off against Labor candidate Christy McBain.
We've got a number of people doing it particularly tough, and it's their voices and those people that I'm seeking to represent.
Only a few days ago, the Deputy Premier was a potential sparring partner. But today, he came out swinging at the Nationals' federal leader. Explosive messages leaked to Sky News show Mr Barilaro slamming Michael McCormack for not supporting his candidacy because he was a threat, texting him, "You will never be acknowledged by me as our leader. You aren't. You never will be." Lachlan Kennedy for 10 News First.
The Australian economy has continued to shed jobs because of all the restrictions imposed to fight coronavirus, with wages also taking a beating. Gillian Bowen has the day in finance.
Hello there, there's plenty of economic news today that directly affects every single Australian household. First, unemployment. Bureau of Statistics payroll data shows almost 1 million jobs have disappeared thanks to COVID-19, a 7.5% drop in 5 weeks, almost 200,000 lost in just 1 week. Wages have suffered too, accommodation and food, the biggest hit sectors, with a third or more than 310,000 jobs now gone. More females lost their jobs, but male wages fell further. Despite all this, consumer confidence has grown for a 5th straight week. More Australians are now feeling better about their finances and the economy, researchers attributing the rise to easing restrictions and a drop-off in COVID-19 patient numbers. But less people are willing to risk putting their home on the market. Residential property listings across the country dropped almost 5% in April. That's down almost 12% compared to 12 months ago. Sydney, the capital city with the most significant yearly decline in listings, down almost 20%. And as expected, the Reserve Bank has decided to hold its course and keep interest rates on hold at a record low of 0.25%. To the share market, it ended the day in positive territory. Construction group giant James Hardie did well despite downgrading its profits, suspending dividends and closing 3 plants, including one here in Australia. A quick look at the dollar. It's up against all of the major currencies. And that's finance.
Stay with us after the break. The pilot turned essential worker after revisiting some old skills in the COVID shutdown. In sport, relief for the Roosters and the Rabbitohs as the league rivals test negative. And the Broncos power broker on the NRL's comeback and succeeding Todd Greenberg.
There's only one thing to look for. Choose a super fund with this symbol.
We're all in this together.
Is everyone here ready to take things to the max?
What do you do if you're married to a man like this?
My husband is at it again.
Well, you write a book about him.
Everyone, please put your hands together for Emily Butler, author of soon-to-be bestseller, My Husband.
Is this meant to be me?
I can explain that.
I've just got some reading to do.
New How to Stay Married, tonight after MasterChef.
A toddler is somehow alive and well after swallowing more than 30 magnetic balls from a toy. It follows a number of similar incidents in the past month, and now doctors fear the spike may be linked to isolation.
She may be small, but Imogen Ferguson has put up a mighty fight. On Thursday, she ate 32 magnetic balls from a toy like this one. Her mum had no idea until Imogen became sick and she took her to hospital. An X-ray revealed what had happened.
Oh, I cried and cried, yeah. I felt pretty guilty.
2-year-old Imogen needed emergency surgery.
What happens is you have a magnet in one area of the bowel and another magnet in another area, and they attract each other and burn a hole through.
Across 2 hours, Imogen's bowel and her life was saved.
Obviously, you can't keep an eye on them 24/7.
Imogen's surgeon says children are swallowing them more frequently since the pandemic began and families started isolating.
This particular toy is a serious hazard.
In the past 3 weeks, 4 life-saving surgeries have been performed on Melbourne children who had swallowed magnetic balls. The youngest was just 18 months old, and doctors are concerned that soon they'll get a patient they cannot save.
These are catastrophic injuries with multiple holes in the bowel, that it can erode into blood vessels, and we're concerned that a child may die from this.
Imogen's older sister also ate 2 of the balls, but they passed naturally. Her surgeon says for some reason the magnets are appealing to small mouths.
They clearly are smooth, they're clearly cold, and so they feel nice at the back of the throat.
Parents are being urged to carefully monitor the use of the toys to make sure the magnets aren't swallowed. Candice Wyatt for 10 News First.
This pandemic health crisis has forced all sorts of career changes as people rush to stay in a job. And while some have entered new fields, we met one high flyer who returned to his roots as a paramedic.
Sean Golding knows how to stick the perfect landing.
On a 78-79.
A few months ago, it was the first Qantas flight from New York to Sydney. And now, after COVID-19, this top pilot is a paramedic.
It's not quite a 787, but we'll get there in one piece.
After 31 years flying, the pandemic saw him put his paramedic training to work full-time.
I started late in life, but it's a great opportunity to get out there and help people when they really need it.
Sean transports patients, including some with COVID-19, between hospitals. And while as a pilot, he's experienced the greatest career highs.
All in all, a great success on our part. That flight last night was 16,200 kilometres.
It's as a paramedic he's enjoyed the greatest rewards.
I work with some amazing people. I see the people in our health system, they're incredible what they do, and just being part of that is fantastic.
If you are lucky enough to get Sean, there is an added bonus because he knows all about in-vehicle entertainment. Sean, what do you get?
Well, there's not too much of a movie selection, but you'll get plenty of my stories.
Sean intends on returning to the skies, but from now on will wear 2 hats, which could make things interesting if there's ever an onboard emergency.
OK, so I will let a doctor or paramedic put their hand up first and I'll assist them if I need to. Otherwise, my primary role is flying the airplane.
Ali Donaldson for 10 News First.
A nice story. Well, Matt Burke is back now with more from the day in sport. And Matt, the brakes are on for the Storm's change-up.
Yeah, that's right, Sandra. Good evening. Melbourne's relocation to the border town of Albury is creating a storm with the local council. At an extraordinary meeting tonight, council could vote against the Storm's stay due to community safety concerns. They aren't allowed to train in Victoria, so had to cross the border. Now council backlash means they could be forced to head to Sydney.
We've been kept across that. Obviously, they'll be worked through with the people responsible for those decisions, and Melbourne are still moving towards going to Albury.
And relief for the NRL today. Latrell Mitchell tested negative to COVID-19. So did teammates Adam Reynolds and Liam Knight, and also Roosters coach Trent Robinson. If the NRL wants Paul White as Todd Greenberg's successor, then they'll have to come calling. The Broncos boss today stopped short of ruling himself out of contention, but conceded the game will headhunt their next CEO.
As the boss of the NRL's richest club, Paul White's resume speaks for itself.
To be honest, it's not a role I've ever coveted, and I think you guys know me well enough to know that, and my focus is very much on the Broncos.
His Broncos deal is due to expire at the end of the year, though he's vowed to see the club through the pandemic. Either way, he won't be dusting off his CV anytime soon, despite the vacancy at NRL headquarters.
If someone thinks you're good enough to do it, someone reaches out to you. It's certainly, I don't think it's a job that demands a CV goes into someone's in tray. I think people have had fair line of sight over me.
The Broncos board moved quickly to tighten their budget, slashing White's $800,000 salary by 50% and cutting almost 24 jobs in a bid to survive to next season.
Because we acted early and we acted in advance maybe of some others, our club's in a good position. We'll come out the other side of this strong. So, I mean, there's no threat to our survival as long as the game survives.
Changes the rest of the competition will inevitably have to make once their funding models are finalised in the coming weeks.
In the fullness of time, our game will look different at the, when we get through this, and it probably needs to look different because there's some lessons to be learned.
Veronica Eggleton for 10 News First.
Ash Barty and Pat Rafter have taken to the skies for a hit of extreme tennis. With a pop-up court on the helipads of the Royal Brisbane and Women's Hospital, the Aussie superstars gave COVID-19 nurses a chance to escape from the stress of the pandemic.
Oh, it was incredible. I think Trish and Michelle lied to us a little bit when they said they hadn't played before, but it was a lot of fun.
And every now and then when the ball went wide, you didn't really want to go for it too much. There was a bit of a drop-off and a consequence.
The current and former world number ones also toured the hospital's units where Brisbane's cases have been treated, and well done to those two as well. Also, Sandra, a shout out to the oldest living wallaby. His name is Eric Tweedale. He turned 99 today, so a massive happy birthday.
Oh, he'll love hearing that from you, and I know Bowser's a fan too. Happy birthday, Eric, from all of us. Nice indeed. Coming up next, though, Mr. Bailey is back with your week ahead weather-wise, so stick around.
Use BP points to spend in store.
BP Rewards.
Or get dollars off fuel.
BP Rewards. BP Rewards.
Or you can choose to earn Qantas points.
Now that's what I call BP Rewards.
Totally BP Rewards.
Start earning today. BP Rewards. Your rewards, your way.
Up next, the true cost of the coronavirus. We look into how much the shutdown has hurt Aussie hip pockets, how an Australian and New Zealand trans-Tasman travel bubble could benefit each country, and comedian Ross Noble's providing a much-needed laugh, all from the comfort of his weird and wacky ISO bunker. Project, next.
I'll give you the fact the mornings have been a bit bitey. They've been crisp, they've been chilled, but the blue skies have been some of autumn's finest, and they continue as we hit the Daily Bailey weather wall, the forecast where we get it all. Low pressure system and troughs hammering southwestern WA, as you can see. Our stories are way different. Our story is cool, calm and collected. Big high pressure system dominating, producing lots of blue sky, and by Friday and Saturday in Sydney will produce big, beautiful northerly warm winds and temperatures that are summertime like. How about 27 degrees on Friday and Saturday? It's a good look. New South Wales, speaking of which, is a very good look tomorrow. Broken Hill, 23 degrees, fine and sunny. Dubbo, 21 degrees. Likewise, Orange, 15 degrees. The Central Coast tomorrow, and Newcastle up around 10 to 23 degrees. And happy birthday to the oldest living wallaby, Eric Tweedale. We know you're watching tonight, and Berkey loved playing with you. He really did. All right, Orange, 15. Canberra, 18 degrees. Narrada's 23. It's a good-looking map, isn't it? Coffs Harbour, a few showers, and they stretch into the Northern Rivers district. Penrith, 24. Some wind, but sunshine. Katoomba down to 3, top of 17. Richmond does 23 degrees as a maximum. The wind will provide the chill factor, but the sunshine will be glorious. 22 Parramatta, Bankstown, 22 degrees. Mascot, magical 23, Terry Hills 21 degrees. Let's have a look at the 7-day forecast. 23 tomorrow, 24 Thursday, Friday 27, 26 Saturday, glorious. Then a bit of a southerly change, 19. In the west, those temperatures are glorious. 27 Friday, 26 degrees Saturday. Big blue sky, Sol.
Did you say that Berkey played with Eric?
Yes, Eric turns 99.
Berkey won't talk to you tomorrow.
That'll be a bonus.
As you can see, we don't get on, but we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Tonight, the true cost of the coronavirus. We look into how much the shutdown has hurt Aussie hip